This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, and you're listening to Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, a.k.a. the Python Hyena. And folks, Annie celebrates 35 years this year. We all know Little Orphan Annie, little red curly hair. Not that pathetic remake that came out a couple years ago that we're all trying to forget. We're talking about the original. And I have the oldest orphan on the phone. Yes, the one that barked all the orders. And the one that could not seem to sustain little Annie. But she's on the phone now. I'm talking about Pepper herself. We have the lovely, the talented Rosanne Sorrentino. Hello, Rosanne.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great. You're the second interview I've had that I just got right on the spot, just coming on the phone. And I'm like, yeah, I'm game. I'm going. Before I interviewed you, I went online because it's been so long for Annie for me. I had to refresh myself, and there was actually a YouTube video with all your scenes on it. So I clicked on that to get a fresher.
You know, that was very exciting because I really didn't know that. And a colleague of mine at work actually said, you know, I was on YouTube the other day and I decided to search you, and somebody created a montage of all your scenes. So I didn't believe them, so I went on YouTube and I saw it, and I couldn't believe, you know, that somebody did that. So a little more searching, and I found out somebody did a Wikipedia page about me. So it's pretty exciting that Pepper is such a fan favorite.
Yeah, I saw one scene where the girl got angry and hit you in the face with a mop. Did that hurt?
We unfortunately had to film that scene 5 or 6 times, so that happened quite a few times. But that was actually a lot of fun, and that's people's favorite scene. Is, you know, if they're not familiar with the movie, I'll say, you know, I was the one who got hit in the face with the mop, and they're like, oh yeah, that was great.
So, how did you get the part? Was it standard edition? Because I take it you had some musical background.
Well, when I was 10 years old, I was Annie in the 3rd National Touring Company.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I actually had the good fortune to perform in Ottawa and in Vancouver.
Okay.
And actually, Vancouver was one of my favorite places because, for a few reasons, it was absolutely beautiful, and we were there for about 3 weeks, and it was around Christmas time. So when we were any place for more than a week, we would rent an apartment. So we had an apartment, and we had a Christmas tree, and it was, you know, it was great. It were great memories. So I toured around the country for a year and a half as Annie, and when that ended, that was around the time they were auditioning for the film. So I auditioned for the film, and that is how I wound up getting the role of Pepper.
Was there any scenes in that movie that you found difficult to do? Because I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't do any of that stuff. So you're way up on me on that.
Honestly, the whole thing was just so much fun. I mean, I guess I could say the worst part of it was there was a lot of downtime where you did a lot of waiting in between scenes. But the singing and the dancing and doing all of that, it was just, I guess I just loved it so much that it just didn't seem difficult to me.
Wow. You enjoy singing?
I love to sing. I love to dance. I love, you know, I'm a very big fan of the big band era.
Okay.
You know, all the standards, Glenn Miller and Artie Shaw and all of those standards. And I used to sing with a 19-piece big band. So I do love to sing, and it's just, performing is just something that comes very easily to me.
Okay. You get, like, Annie's a musical. Do you got any favorite musicals?
I would have to say that my all-time favorite musical, besides Annie, that's number one, would have to be Wicked.
Why do I not know that movie? What is Wicked?
Wicked is about the two witches from The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
And it's supposedly the true story of the two witches from The Wizard of Oz. It's been on Broadway now for quite some time. And it's a wonderful, wonderful show.
What year did the movie come
out? You mean a movie musical?
Oh, okay.
I was talking a Broadway musical,
okay.
But a movie musical, I guess Grease. That was one of the first movie musicals I ever saw.
Grease. Yeah, I actually have one of the dancers on here from Grease back in 2015. I had the lovely Antonia Franceschi, and I didn't know she was in Grease. I actually interviewed her because she was in Fame. And
okay.
I loved her in Fame, and when I was looking her up, I was like, backup dancer in Grease. And I knew exactly who she was because they always had those same dancers in the background, and she was the cute one.
Grease, yes, I'll never forget seeing Grease. That was a great movie. I think my grandmother took me to see that movie.
I saw Grease at a midnight screening a few years ago, and I love seeing movies at midnight because the audiences just get involved. And when Olivia Newton-John sings "Helplessly Devoted to You," there was a group of females in the middle of the theater that sang along with it.
That was a great number. I mean, there were really no bad numbers in that movie.
No.
All of the songs were great.
Although I feel so bad that Jeff Conaway is gone. I liked him as Kinnicky.
Yeah. I mean, he was the ultimate. I don't think anybody could have played that role better.
Yeah, I felt so sad when I heard that he had passed, when he did. So, yeah, I guess he had some health issues or whatnot, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. But nonetheless, Annie celebrating its 35th anniversary.
I can't believe that.
And you're not that much older than me. In fact, you're right around handy to my age, but I won't give your age on here. But I was born in the 70s, and I would have been... I would have been 10 years old when Annie came out.
Yeah, so I was... Well, I don't mind how old I am. I'm a little older than you, but I was 12 when I did that. So, you could do the math. But, it was such an exciting time. I mean, when I think about it, Annie was a kind of a groundbreaking musical. They had done musicals and musical movies for years and years. I mean, history is full of the greatest Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers and Shirley Temple, but Annie was different, and I think it was because it was such a huge hit on Broadway and then it closed. So this was a way for people who had never been able to see the play. They were able to experience it in the movies, and it's just a great story, and it really resonates with people.
Yeah, and you got to work with director John Huston. Now, there's a guy who made he was in Chinatown, and of course he directed The Maltese Falcon and some of these great movies, and here he is doing this little musical. What was he like as a director?
He was great with the kids. He was like a grandfather. You weren't afraid of him. You weren't intimidated by him. He had a very gentle way about dealing with the kids in the movie and getting them to do what he needed them to do. And so he was a real pleasure to work with.
It's interesting because I had Lisa Langlois on back in 2015, and she was in the movie Phobia that he had directed, and she said she had an interesting experience working with him as well. And I'm trying to think who. Oh yeah, I interviewed Ronnie Cox, the actor Ronnie Cox, who's now also a musician, and he wrote a song about John Huston called "The Night John Huston Died." It was called, and it was an interesting backstory to that. So I've had a few people commenting on here on working with or encounters with John Huston. But this movie just kind of stands out because you see all these kind of dark or noirish kind of films that he's done, and here's this like little kid's musical, and you don't expect him to do a musical, and yet here's him working with kids and with music.
And I think that when it was announced that he was going to be directing it, I think the general feeling was like, John Huston, really? You know, kids and animals and music, and it was just too much. But, you know, he really embraced it, and he wanted to do right by it, which I really appreciated. Having been an Annie in the play, it was very near and dear to me, and so I really feel he wanted to do right by the play and keep it as real as it was.
It's interesting, too, because you was Annie in the play, but you were very, very fortunate to get to play Pepper in the movie. We just talked about Kinnicky and Jeff Conaway. He was Danny in the Grease play, and, of course, John Travolta played Danny in the movie, but he got to play Kinnicky, so it was kind of cool that he got to... He kind of had a similar experience as you. Yes.
It was... You know, I didn't know at the time what a great role it was going to be, but it became very clear to me very quickly that this is awesome. I can have a lot of fun with this. And, you know, and it wound up being, what's really neat is when I meet people and they find out that I was in the movie and they find out that I was Pepper, they always say, oh my God, Pepper was my favorite character. And so that's a really cool thing for me because it was a really great kid role in that film. You know, I got to be funny, I got to be serious, I got to sing, and it was remarkable. It really was. I just enjoyed it so much.
You know, I was looking through the credits and freshening myself up, and something caught my attention. I'm like, really? Shawnee Smith is listed as dancer number 8, and I'm like, that woman that was trapped in Saw?
Yes.
The one that had the face trap that's so familiar in the Saw movies. She was a dancer in Annie? I'm like, I didn't... Yes.
She played one of the orphans, one of the background orphans. And I was actually pretty friendly with her on the set. And I remember watching, years later, I don't remember what I was watching, but she was on TV, and I was like, Shawnee Smith, I know that name. Oh, my God, that's Shawnee Smith from the movie. So,
and now she's famous for being captured by Jigsaw.
I know. Well, we also had, in the movie, Amanda Peterson, who unfortunately passed away at a very early age, but she was in Can't Buy Me Love.
Yes. I didn't know.
And she was she was fantastic. What a talent.
I didn't know Amanda Peterson had passed away.
She did a couple of years ago.
Okay, that's unfortunate. Yes.
It is, because she was a beautiful girl with a gorgeous, gorgeous voice. And it's just so sad. She was ill and unfortunately passed away, but she worked on the film, and you know, I look back at all of those kids, and it's just amazing that we all got to work together.
Wouldn't it have been interesting if Shawnee Smith had did a musical number and Saw? I can't look at her the same in that movie anymore.
Oh, my goodness.
I had to do a double take. I had to click the name, and I was like, is that the same Shawnee Smith? There can't be two of them.
Yep, nope.
She's in all those...
Innocent Shawnee and Annie.
Oh, wow. That is actually kind of funny when you stop and think about it. But, yeah? No,
she was, you know... I hung out a lot with, obviously, all of the orphans. We spent a lot of time together. So, you know, we had a lot of downtime, and it was like one big kind of party all the time when we were just hanging out and having a lot of fun.
It was Tony Ann Gisowandi?
Yes, Tony Ann, who I still keep in touch with.
Yeah.
And, she's got a lovely family she lives in Jersey, and she's just the sweetest, nicest person that you ever want to meet.
Ah, she might be somebody I should reach out to before the end of the year.
And probably.
35th anniversary, that's the time to do this,
Yeah, and she was, she was Molly, so that was like, Annie's baby. Annie took care of her, and Pepper beat her up. That's what I did.
Of course, speaking of Annie, Aileen Quinn and that red hair.
Yes.
She's all grown up now. I think, she still got the red hair, but it's not all puffy and curly anymore.
No, she had beautiful red hair as a kid, but she wore a wig through the movie. And I remember it kind of bugging me that it was a curly red wig because Annie had straight hair. And the whole thing was at the end when they dressed her all up. And she had this curly red hair,
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'm not familiar with the backstory there. I did not know that was a wig. You see, my memories of Aileen Quinn, I know that she was Annie, but outside that, I haven't done a whole lot of research on her. But that image of Annie, that's why the remake, one of the reasons the remake, I don't think resonated with people, because when people think of Annie, they think, of course, the red hair, the curly red hair always pops to mind. And, what did you think of just a curiosity, did you hate the remake as much as most of us did?
I didn't even watch it.
It won a lot of Razzies.
I didn't see it, and I'll tell you why I didn't see it, because I feel like they used the name Annie to drum up attention, because it wasn't Annie.
I agree.
It was a totally modernized, and listen, I think it's great. You can do a totally modernized version of Annie, but don't call it Annie.
I agree. Yeah.
Annie is Annie.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was perfect the way it was. I don't think you need to mess with it.
Well, I wish they would stop remaking good movies. If they want to do remakes, take some garbage like Pearl Harbor. That's a piece of garbage film. Remake that, take the love triangle out, make a war movie like he was supposed to in the first place, instead of advertising a war movie and then cheating everybody with what I call a lie.
Right.
Yeah. There's an
I
example.
mean, there were a couple of remakes of Annie after the original, and they tried to stay like more true to the play.
Yeah.
And I thought that they did a good job, but they didn't generate the attention and the buzz that the original did. And that's like anything. Any original, it's the original.
Yep.
You're not going to top it.
There is a few times, though, where a remake has done well. Like, I think Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978, was an example of a good remake. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo American version turned out to be fantastic. Those are a couple of examples that come to mind that where they did. But you know what? They have filmmakers that cared enough to make something good, And
that's true, yes.
Yeah. So
and it wasn't about the making the money or the big box office hits or anything like that.
Yeah. Like another film that came out in 1982 was Conan the Barbarian, and I loved Conan the Barbarian, but the remake, oh my goodness, I was like, it was so horrible. It's like they tarnished that memory, those memories you have of these movies.
You're an amazing movie buff. You've seen a lot of movies, huh?
Well, I got a lot of movies home, and it's kind of funny because I started, especially within the last couple of years when I was doing podcasting, it's pitching movies based on anniversaries is something special too. Like Like last year, I celebrated the 35th anniversary of Clash of the Titans and Scanners and Ms. 45, and that was kind of fun. And
Wow.
And this year, speaking of 1982, there's Annie, but there's Blade Runner, Conan the Barbarian, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Pink Floyd.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High. That was a great movie.
I loved it. I had Amanda Wiz on here last year with a director. They're promoting a movie called The Id, and I'm really hoping to get Amanda back on this year to top some Fast Times, because she was a little pressed for time, so we couldn't go into it in too much detail. But I'd love.
Oh, that was great.
It's probably
1982.
Yep.
I was just starting high school, so I was at that age where you could start to watch movies like that.
Yeah.
And that was the big movie.
Yeah,
everybody was watching it.
I love Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Did you go to school with a Jeff Spicoli?
Yes, I did. There were a couple of Jeff Spicolis in my school.
Let me guess, you dated both of them, didn't you?
No, I did not. I dated the quarterback of the football team.
Oh, you dated the Forrest Whitaker character who killed them all.
I did. All through high school, I was involved in the theater, obviously.
Yeah.
And then it was going to be my senior year, and I had always wanted to be a cheerleader.
Okay.
So I said, but I couldn't do cheerleading and the theater at the same time because it conflicted. So I said, you know what, my senior year, I really want to do cheerleading. I'm going to try out. So I tried out, and I made varsity cheer.
Okay.
So for my senior year, I was a varsity cheerleader, and for part of my senior year, I dated the quarterback of the football team. It was like the perfect film, But really, my heart was with the theater, and I was very active in my high school theater productions. So even though I left theater professionally, I still got to do it. And I actually played Rizzo in Grease in high school.
Gotta love Stockard Channing.
Gotta love her.
Yeah.
It was a great role. One of the greatest roles ever.
Yeah. How did you play her similar to Stockard?
Yeah, I think I did. I think I played her similar to Pepper, too. I mean, I think I had that tough... I have always kind of been really good at playing the supporting comic role, but always had that like underlying sad story,
Pepper.
Like I played Rizzo in Grease. I played Meg Brocky from Brigadoon.
Yeah.
And I played Agnes Gooch from Mame. So I played all these characters that were like very funny, but also had a very poignant understory going on. So those were great roles. They were really fun to play.
You kind of get the feeling that Rizzo might have been Pepper in her younger days.
Absolutely. They were both tough cookies. They weren't going to let anybody walk all over them. But at the heart of it, they were really very sensitive and just wanted to be loved.
Agreed. Yeah, you had that scene where Stockard does get vulnerable, and she actually kind of not quite opens up, but reaches out to Olivia Newton-John there, Sandy, at the end of the film there, and that's a kind of a nice little moment there.
Well, absolutely. It's kind of like when Annie's leaving the orphanage and she's saying goodbye, and she says goodbye to Pepper, the person who has tormented her,
Mm-hmm.
And now she's like, goodbye, Pepper. And Pepper was like, what? You said goodbye to me? I've been so mean to you.
Well, you had some interesting adult actors in that film, too, of course. Albert Finney, of course.
Yes.
What was your memories of him?
Albert was very funny. He loved to tell the kids stories. and funny little poems and riddles. He was very open to the children. Like, he would be sitting in his makeup chair and the kids would be gathered around him and he would be talking to them and making them laugh. You know, he wasn't like, oh, I'm in makeup now, children, you know, leave me alone. He was very open to the kids being around. And he was a very, very nice man.
And we also had, of course, Carol Burnett playing a rather nasty role in the movie.
She was the best.
I bet. She looked like she was having fun.
But you know what? She is the nicest person.
She looked like she was having a blast.
I think she really was. I think she was really enjoying herself. She hung out with us in between takes. We would talk. I remember talking to her specifically about the Carol Burnett show because I loved that show. And we would talk about the character of Eunice and how they did the commercial spoofs. And I was like, oh my God, I'm having a conversation with Carol Burnett. Like, she was the nicest woman you ever want to meet.
Awesome, yeah.
Hands down. I've never met anybody nicer.
And another person in this movie, of course, Tim Curry. Now, Tim Curry, of course, was famous for the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I had the pleasure of having Little Nell on here back in 2015 for the 40th anniversary of Rocky Horror. And, of course, Tim Curry, of course, played Dr. Frankenfurter. And here he is back in another musical, in Annie. There he was.
And he was great in that role. I really think he did a phenomenal job of capturing the character of her crooked brother, you know. And I only had a couple of scenes with him and Bernadette Peters, so I really didn't get to know them too much. But I did see Bernadette Peters many years ago. How many years ago? It had to be 10 years ago. I saw her at Radio City Music Hall where Bette Midler was performing. And, of course, I was sitting in, like, the 30th row, and she walked right by my row and went down to the first row. So at intermission, I was with a friend, and I said, I'm just going to go and say hello to Bernadette Peters. And she said, what, you are not? And I said, I am. And I walked down to the first row, and I said, Bernadette, and she turned around, she looked at me, and I said, I don't know if you remember me. I said, we did a couple of scenes together. I said, I was Pepper in Annie, and her face dropped, and she kind of went, oh, my goodness, I do remember you, you know? And it was kind of neat that she remembered who I was. Even if it was vaguely, she still remembered. And it was very cool to me to just be able to walk up to her and say, we worked together.
Yeah, she was in, like, Pennies from Heaven with Steve Martin, and she was also in a little movie we might have heard of called The Jerk with Steve Martin.
The Jerk, a great movie, yes. She was in that. She's done so much. She's really an amazing person.
I think The Jerk is one of the funniest movies I ever seen, and she and Steve, especially the scene where they're trying to kiss each other but not trying to kiss each other.
Yeah. Yes, that is one of the all-time classic movies.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre scene, and of course, you know, the dog named Shithead.
Yeah.
Yeah, she tells her to come jump in the tub with him. A friggin' dog goes and jumps in the tub, takes the dog and puts it in front of him and starts calling her name. And I'm like, yeah, he has no idea just how bad this looks.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, I loved her in The Jerk, and I like the fact that she was able to. I don't want to say play dumb, but she was on kind of. It's hard to keep up with Steve Martin, and yet she managed to be a great female equal to him in that movie.
Well, yes, she was, and she plays ditzy very well, because when she plays a ditzy character, she's ditzy, but she's very, very, very savvy as well. You know?
Mm-hmm.
She plays the ditzy character who's like, you think I'm ditzy, but I'm really not.
You know who she reminds me of?
Who?
She puts me in mind of Carol Kane.
Yes, I could see that.
Yeah, that's who she puts me in mind of. Now, looking down through here, too, there's other people in this movie. Did I write this name down there? Jeffrey Hodder?
Who?
Oh, Jeffrey Hodder?
Oh, Jeffrey Holder.
Holder, I'm sorry. I got my writing clouded down here.
Oh, that's okay. Jeffrey Holder, Punjab. Yes, he was the spokesperson for 7-Up soda, the Uncola.
Yeah, I looked him up. He's unfortunately gone now.
He is, yeah. He was great. He was a gigantic guy. Literally, he was a gigantic guy. He was so tall. And the most graceful dancer for a man his size.
Yeah, and of course, Edward Herrmann.
Who also passed.
Yeah, he's gone, yep.
Another really, really nice man. I mean, I feel so kind of cliche, a really nice man, but everybody it was a very happy place to be on that set. Everybody was happy. Everybody was enjoying themselves. There was no, from what I could remember, and maybe it's good that I was 12 and I remember it that way, but there was no negativity. Everybody was just enjoying themselves. And it was a really positive experience. At least that's the way I remember it, and that's the way it should have been, because for crying out loud, you're making a movie. It should be fun.
It should be, yeah.
I sometimes listen to actors who complain or, talk about how difficult it is. You're making a movie. Every day you get to go to work and do this great thing, like make a movie. And so I consider myself very blessed to have been a part of that.
I think one of the saddest stories I ever heard was director Kevin Smith. He loved Bruce Willis, and he got Bruce Willis on Cop Out. We got to direct him in Cop Out, and he said it was the biggest nightmare he ever had working with an actor. And it was just to hear him tell it, and he tells it comedically, but you can tell that there's just a sense of disappointment. He because he can't look at this person he admired the same anymore.
And that's unfortunate because, I think I said to you, or I said to somebody earlier, I said, I'm an assistant principal at a middle school here on Long Island in the United States. And sometimes I will bump into people and they'll find out I was an Annie. And they get a little starstruck and they get a little excited and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. That was one of the best times of my life. And the fact that you really enjoyed it makes me happy. So I don't understand when people are so aloof and can't. If I was super, super famous, I would be so accessible, probably to my detriment, but I would be so accessible because I would appreciate the fact that people liked me enough that they wanted to go and see things that I did.
It's interesting you bring that up because I know back in 1996 there was a movie called The Fan that came out with Robert De Niro and Wesley Snipes, and I boycotted it because, Robert De Niro played this obsessive baseball fan, and of course Wesley Snipes played the baseball star he admired, and he did all this stuff to get into his life and whatnot. And I boycotted the film because it's like ever since John Lennon was unfortunately shot, it's like fans are being blamed for everything, and they never stop. Like you're my 79th interview. I've never had a bad. Of course, I've never been outside New Brunswick, but still, I'm able to be friends with some of these people on Facebook without having somebody call me a stalker. There's a way to interact and way not. But I find it interesting, you see these people at the Comic Cons and whatnot that are so great, and they go to all this creativity to make costumes and stuff, to do these meet and greets, and all Hollywood seems to want to do is look at the fans like we're a bunch of stalkers, and that kind of pisses me off. And to top it off, you look at the Academy Awards and this stuff, I don't think I've ever seen the fans get thanked, and that bugs me.
Yeah, I guess you're right with that, but, I guess when you get a certain level of celebrity, I don't know, I've never been there. I know that I'm very thankful for the people who appreciate the fact that I was part of their childhood growing up, that they loved the movie Annie, that they loved the play Annie, and they loved the character that I played. And I appreciate that, and I cherish that. And I've always called Annie is the gift that keeps on giving. Annie has been such a blessing to me.
Yep.
I can't ever say anything bad about it. I never would. It has been an amazing part of my life. It's been an amazing part of my children's life. My kids tell their friends, and some kids would be like, oh, I don't talk about my mother. My mother's embarrassing. My kids tell their friends, hey, my mom was Pepper and Annie. And their friends are like, what? Are you kidding me? And they're like, no, that's my mom. And that makes me so happy that my kids are proud of what I did, to be a part of something that makes them proud. So Annie is one of my major prides of my life.
It's interesting. You just put me in mind of something, too, because last October I interviewed kind of a Pepper-type character on my show. It was the 45th anniversary of another musical, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, yeah.
And I had the lovely Julie Dawn Cole on here who played Barusa Salt. She was,
I love that.
Oh, yeah, I had her on here, and Pepper kind of reminds me of her in a lot of ways.
I could see that, yes. She was kind of a sassy, kind of pushy, you're going to do it my way type of character.
Yeah. One other name that I got on this list, another very accomplished dancer, Anne Rankling.
Anne Ranking, yes.
Ranking. I said her name wrong.
That's okay.
Yeah. Now, there's a classy lady.
What an amazing talent, an amazing dancer. I actually had very little contact with her because we weren't really in any scenes together. So I can't really speak too much about her, but other than the fact that I thought she was an excellent choice for Grace Farrell.
And she's unfortunately gone as well.
She is?
Yeah. Well, I think so. I was just looking up a bunch that's on there. I think she's passed.
No. I'm going to Google it right now while we're on the radio
Google
together.
Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong. I think she's still with us.
Well, I know Jeffrey Holden and Edward Herman are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I caught another name and.
Yeah, no, she's still with us.
Oh, she still lives?
She lives.
Oh man, did I have that wrong? I wonder why. Maybe I had her mixed up with somebody else.
Yeah, I think so. She's still kicking. No pun intended.
Oh, well, there. I stand corrected, and
that's good. I'm glad.
And we're happy.
I'm glad you were wrong.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm wrong too. We're glad that Anne Ranking is still with us. It kind of put me in mind of something. This has happened to a couple of wrestlers there've been news articles written on. I know there was a Pacific wrestler whose name he woke up one morning, he opened the paper and saw his obituary.
Oh, geez.
He was like, he didn't know he had passed away.
Yeah, you don't ever want to wake up and see your obituary. That's not the way to start the day, that's for sure.
Yep, that's happened to a couple of wrestlers. Their names in the obituary, and they'd have to try to. That's it's kind of funny, but yet you're kind of glad they're still alive. So we're happy Ann Ranking is alive and well, hopefully well.
Yes, we are very happy.
Yeah. So you say you're assistant principal now?
I am. I started my career in education as an English teacher in a school here on Long Island, Brentwood School District.
Okay.
And I eventually, continued my education, and I became an assistant principal about 4 years ago. And very funny is that my music department decided they wanted to do a musical this year. And what do you think the musical was that they chose?
Saw?
Saw, yes. Saw, yeah.
I mean, Annie?
Annie, yes. And they came to me and they said, would you play Miss Hannigan? So I said, well, of course I would play Miss Hannigan. So I will be starring in the North Middle School production of Annie Jr. as Miss Hannigan.
So you're not going to play Pepper?
I'm not playing Pepper. We have actually, one of my students in the school is playing Pepper, and she is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah?
She's a very talented young lady, and she's got the part down pat, man. She is Pepper all the way. She is sassy. She is tough. She's excellent.
It's funny because I'm making fun of the fact that so many of these teen movies have actors that are way too old to be playing teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
There's a movie that came out 10 years ago called Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, was starring John C. Reilly, and it was making fun of all these music documentaries or biopics that were coming out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I love the movie, but this movie's hysterical. And, of course, he plays a musician named Dewey Cox. And one part of the movie, you've got Margot Martindale plays his mom, and she's going backstage at some Broadway school play. And she goes, where's my 13-year-old boy? You got all these kids. And John C. Reilly turns around, dressed like the other kids, goes, hi, Mom, over here.
I never saw that movie, actually.
Yeah, they're making fun of the fact that the older people playing the kids, and of course, John C. Reilly looks nothing like any of these kids.
Yeah, no. He was great in Step Brothers with Will Ferrell.
I have to say, I hated Step Brothers.
My sister loves that movie, and at first I was like, that movie's so stupid, but when you watch it a couple of times, it's kind of so stupid that it's funny.
Well, it was directed by Adam McKay, and he's done some movies I really liked, like the two Anchorman movies, for example. I loved, and The Other Guys, I thought those were terrific, but I don't know, Step Brothers just kind of almost seemed like it was, I don't know, holding back or something. I don't know. It didn't have, at least from my standpoint, the innovation that those other movies had. I think it had an idea.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It didn't work for me.
Well, like I said, it was silly slapstick comedy, but it was enjoyable. It had its moments. And I think it all depends on what kind of comedy you really like.
Oh, I like all kinds of comedy, whether it be...
If you can make me laugh. Did you see Bad Moms?
Oh, I didn't like that either.
You didn't like that?
I hated it.
Oh, my God. I guess you need to be a bad mom in order to appreciate it.
Now, let me see. What did I like? I thought The Hangover was funny.
Now, if you tell me you didn't think Bridesmaids was funny, we're going to be in a fight, and I'm going to have to end this interview.
Bridesmaids was funny, yeah.
It was.
I actually really liked Office Christmas Party, and people criticized me for liking it, but I love Kate McKinnon.
I did not see that.
I think Kate McKinnon's friggin' hysterical.
I do love Kate McKinnon. I really do. I think she's the new breakout talent. And you know what's funny is my oldest daughter she does improv comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And she's in college, and she did this kind of like as a goof thing, and she found out she was really good at it. And so she's absolutely hysterical. I've seen her a few times, and I'm not saying that just because she's my daughter. She actually is funny, and she gets a ton of laughs all the time. And she would love to be like the next Kristen Wiig or the next Kate McKinnon. And, you know, I'm like, go for it, girl, because you're young. Do it now while you're young. And I think that more kids need to do that. They need to kind of seize the day.
You know what? I'm going to bring something up to you. I wasn't going to bring this up, but you just kind of made me think about something. And I think you sound like you might have the right spirit for it. Well, you unfortunately lost Robin Williams not too long ago. He was a gifted comic. You remember a couple of years ago when they had the Ice Bucket Challenge?
I do.
Yeah. Well, after Robin Williams, I thought that was great. So many people, and they managed to get the film industry and music industry involved in that, and they raised all this money, and somebody close to me has got ALS, so...
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it is. It is terrible. And after Robin Williams had passed away, another one had risen for suicide/depression. And I've been struck with that a few times, not suicide, but depression, because it's kind of like a chemical imbalance, and you never know when it's going to hit.
Yes.
And somebody, I don't know who, but opened up a new challenge called the Doubtfire Face Challenge in honor of Robin Williams. And it involved...
Really?
Yeah. And it involved taking a pie in the face, and you nominate 3 people to take the challenge in honor of suicide and depression awareness. And
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah. Well, I did it originally. I come from a Christian household, and so I did it one time, and I had this journalist from a Christian publication in California who had was following me on on Twitter, and she asked the question, what's going to be the next big challenge after Ice Bucket? I told her about the Doubtfire Face, and I asked her if she would do it, and she said I'd have to nominate her first. So I did a video, and I wanted to nominate people like, Emma Stone, Anna Kendrick, and people like that I thought were funny but very talented, And this woman had interviewed a lot of them. So I did this a video, and I took the pie in the face, and her response was, she goes, "Nice video, but I'm not taking a pie in the face, though, but I hope this catches on." And I was like, what a rude response.
Yeah.
And I've come to find out, and I'm going to eventually expose them for this, but I'm going to do it at the right time. I got the tweets that where she had was agreed to do it if I nominated her. I got that copied and pasted so she can't deny it. But they're basically using religion for profit, although they'll deny that. I guess there was a riot in Baltimore, and they blamed it on that movie The Purge, and they said if you give them money, this won't happen. I'm like, really? Seriously?
Oh, I'm actually looking it up, the Doubtfire Challenge back in 2014.
Yeah. So when I started doing these podcast interviews and started interacting with some of the people I've interviewed, it kind of dawned on me, you know what? Screw that person. I'm going to try another way. And I did the challenge again, and I went after people that I interviewed. And I have had... So far, I've had 3 people I've interviewed do the challenge. one actress was from a thriller, one was from a slasher film, and one person one person that did it was an author. And I've got a former Miss USA that's set to do it, and I've got another actor, actress, and whatnot set to do it as well whenever they get around to it. And one of my aims was to get the industry involved, because let's face it, when the Ice Bucket Challenge took off, a lot of it was because so many people in the industry got involved, because that's what people want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I'm going to try this, and I went after the people I interviewed, and I've had some takers on that, and I thought, with Annie, I thought maybe I'd throw that out to you if you're up for it.
The Python, the Mrs. Doubtfire challenge?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I didn't do the Ice Bucket Challenge because I hate to be cold.
Well, I was never nominated for the Ice Bucket Challenge, so I avoided that altogether. But
somebody nominated me, but I was like, I don't like to be cold, so. But the Mrs. Doubtfire Challenge, it's one of my favorite movies, I might be up for that.
Yeah, and you just you film yourself, you put the video out, and I put a lot of them right on the YouTube channel, so I send them out there so people can see them. And I know one of the actresses that did it, she got 500 hits within a week on that thing.
Wow.
Yep. And I thought it was fantastic. And here's the funny thing is that suicide, especially depression's never taken seriously. It's like people say, get over it. It's not that simple.
Right.
Not that simple.
No.
Yeah. So I don't know. And it's up to you. I'm not trying to pressure you, but I thought I'd throw that out to you since you say you like comedies. And
I would consider the Mrs. Doubtfire Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Would give it some strong consideration.
Yeah, I didn't realize it started in 2014. That doesn't seem
that.
Yeah.
It's been around a while.
Yeah, but I've been throwing that challenge out to some of my interviewees, and I was very happy that I've had some that's take me up on it and been in contact with. In fact, one of the slasher film actresses wants to do an edited version of it, and I've seen a rough cut of the edited version. I thought her rough cut was great, but she wants to interact some footage of Robin Williams and stuff like that, and like really touch it up and make it look professional. And, and I thought that was really cool. So I don't know. It's kind of something that has affected me, and I thought I'll throw this out there and see where it goes.
Well, throw it out there and let's see what happens. I mean, it can't hurt.
Yeah.
God knows depression affects probably a lot more people than we even know.
Well, it hit me earlier this year, and my system just buckled on me. And I actually, for the first time, went on antidepressants. I'm not on them now, but I went on them that day, and they helped. But after I thought, I hope I don't have to depend on these forever, because I hear about stuff like that. But I'm okay right now. And, I did the refill, and that was it, I guess, so. But
yeah, well, it's very brave of you to talk about it, because it is kind of a thing that people sort of shy away from and are embarrassed about, and it is a real problem. And being an assistant principal in a middle school, we see it a lot more in younger kids, and it's very difficult in younger kids because parents don't want to sometimes acknowledge that their kids are suffering from this. But it's a real problem, and it spans the age ranges, and I think that's the difference about it.
Yeah.
Is that, it can go from younger kids to adults, and it can hit at any time.
Oh, you're right there. I'm proof of that.
You're going along, your life is going good, and then the next thing you know, you're feeling really down and really blue. So you need to be aware of it. And people tend to think that if you say, oh, maybe you should seek some counseling, well, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Nobody said you were crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Just you got some stuff going on, and you need a little help.
Yep. I do find, though, as unbearable as it is, I always find that eventually there comes a day when it passes, and it does pass.
It does, for most people, but unfortunately for people like Robin Williams and other celebrities, sometimes it doesn't pass quick enough, and then they succumb to it. So it's really important to make sure that we have enough information.
Do you get like
I have to tell you, Greg, this has been a very interesting interview, and I've really enjoyed talking to you.
I was just going to say, but before we close off, did you have like a web page or any charities of your own that you wanted to plug on here?
Well, one charity that I am fond of is lupus, anything for lupus, because I actually was diagnosed with lupus a few years ago, actually more than a few years ago. It's probably about 15 years ago now that I was diagnosed. And luckily for me, it's a mild case of lupus, and I have it under control, and I have some really great doctors who take care of me. But it is a very difficult disease to diagnose, and it takes a really long time, and it can be very debilitating. So that is something that I try to, donate to as often as I can and make awareness. And I don't really, some people will hide the fact that they have an illness like that, but, I do have it, and I guess I've been lucky enough that it's mild. I get to work, and I get to continue my life and enjoy my life. So, but it's out there, and a lot of people suffer from it, and so I try to help as much as I can.
Yeah, I'm not overly familiar with that. What is this?
Lupus is an autoimmune disease, and
Okay.
It affects the different systems of the body, mostly joints and muscles, but it can affect all different parts of the body. For me, it affected my joints, my muscles, and my eyes, but I've got it under control. And like I said, I have great doctors who take care of me and monitor me, so I've been able to lead a very full, productive, happy life. And I think that's due in large part to the fact that there's been more awareness about this disease and a lot of research, and there have been a lot of advancements. So, I know a few people with lupus, and it's different with every person. And that's the tricky thing about this, is it's very difficult to diagnose because it is very different with each person who has it, and it presents differently. So you sort of have to kind of rule out every illness there is, and when there's nothing left and you still don't feel good, it's kind of like, must be lupus. But, you can still live a really good, productive, happy life with it.
Okay. Well,
and unfortunately, there are people who it's really severe, and they have real turmoil. And I don't want to downplay that at all, because I know that I have been extremely lucky that my lupus has been very mild, and I've been able to keep it under control. I know there are people who are not that lucky, and they've actually had to go for chemotherapy.
Oh.
So it can be very serious. But so that is something that I always try to make awareness of, and I try to donate as much as I can to it. I try to, when lupus calls and they're looking for donations, I always try to give a donation.
Okay. Well, before you go, I was wondering if you would do a plug for my show.
Sure. What would you like me to say?
Just state your name and state that you played Pepper and Annie, and My name is Greg Gilbert, and my show is called Python's Paradise. And I'm from New Brunswick, Canada.
Python's Paradise.
Yep,
New Brunswick,
Canada. Have you ever been up this way before?
Just Ottawa and Vancouver.
Okay. Nobody knows where New Brunswick, Canada
is. I have no idea where New Brunswick is.
We got our closest celebrities are the Trailer Park Boys.
Oh, my brother-in-law loves that show.
Yeah, I'm
going to have to call him and tell him.
I love the Trailer Park Boys. They're not.
He loves that show.
They're.
Right, so
I think
I'm
they're.
going to do a plug for your show. Are you ready?
Okay, you go for it.
Okay, you ready? All right, here we go. Hi, this is Rosanne Sorrentino. I played Pepper in the movie Annie, and I have had the great pleasure of appearing on the Greg Gilbert Show, Python's Paradise, from New Brunswick, Canada.
Yes, and we celebrate the 35th anniversary of Annie.
35 years.
And Pepper.
Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate it.
And I will friend you on Facebook.
Thank you. Please do. It was great talking to you.
God bless you, and you take care.
You too, hon. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.